Okay.
All right, so welcome to the Natural Balance Masterclass. My name is Neal. Welcome, Dave. Welcome, Brenda. And like I spoke to, the topic tonight is surrender, and it's really fresh in my being right now because of just literally sitting in silence for 10 days, and that's why I'm bringing it as a topic. And during just in the duration already that we've been conversating, I've spoken more than I've spoken in the last 2 weeks. Um, I literally haven't been using my voice, and so using my voice is like when I used it for the first time, um, I had unlocked a level of my voice that hadn't been accessible before, to the extent where my voice sounded foreign to Neal. And
Wow.
um, so I've been learning to speak literally, and I have an awareness of how to speak, but to have it land I'm like relearning all this right now. And so this aspect of surrender, this played a big role being in silence, because like for the first 3 days, for the first 4 days, I wasn't surrendered, and I had all this mind chatter going on. And I'm a doer. I do. And I've discovered two things that are illusionary. One of them is silence, and the other one is like being still. Stillness and silence, both are illusions, because change is the only constant. And if something's changing, it's making noise. And the quieter we become, the subtler and the subtler and the subtler the noise becomes. But it's always there. The noise doesn't go away. We just tune into a new level of hearing the subtleness of the noise that's present. This can become as subtle as hearing our blood pumping, feeling our heart, and hearing our heart.
Wow.
When you don't have all this stimulus, your listening increases to a greater degree. And so with this aspect of surrender, I had to surrender Neal during this, and I didn't have to, but I chose to. And the Neal that I surrendered was the egoic identity construction that I was prior to going into this. And um, how the only way I was actually able to complete the full 10 days was by surrender. And because we were meditating 6 hours a day every day for 10 days,
Wow.
um, which is extensive, and especially for a person who is a doer. And um, so with this doing, I was literally doing like using physical output, using my body and my words to co-create permaculture, and I was assisting Jose on the land prior to the retreat. And I literally was using a wheelbarrow and making a path with rocks the day of that we went into silence. So the following day, when we just started meditating, and when I was just being, that was the first moment I stopped doing and actually started being. And so I went from like 100 miles per hour to like zero. And it took me like 3 or 4 days to actually um, surrender to the point where I was okay being at zero. And what was coming up during those 3 or 4 days was my commitments. I was like, well, like I'm committed to like feeding 30 people in this village, so like I'm like on that. Like there's things that can be done. There's like to Neal, what I perceived when I went there, it felt like I threw the shit in the fan and then just left. But it was a false perception, because I had actually created people to navigate and to hold responsibility that I had been holding while I wasn't here. So like everything was in actuality taken care of, but then there was like my mind that wanted to implement.
Mm.
And
You
um
felt that maybe you had to be over at Earthwaking to
to be of
assist or
service.
lead. Right, but you had got that covered though. You said you had found people to take on that responsibility. So there was a release and a surrender for that. You had to surrender. You didn't initially, but I think you finally did. Let them take care of it. They got this, and I'm here to do this. So you had to release that, surrender that responsibility to others, and that was a little difficult, right?
Yeah, it was. But I also think like yeah, so basically that's what I'm going to speak to right now. And then I just want to open it up and to see what you heard from what I shared, and anything you would like to speak to add to the word surrender, either how it's showing up currently or the lack of it showing up.
Okay. Oh, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, that's the invitation.
Okay, got no. I thought you were going to say something more about the surrender. That's okay. No, yeah. What I heard was that the challenge. It was a challenge to let go of yourself, your ego, because it's present with you all the time, and that this exercise of silence, it allowed you to do that surrender, and also let go of the responsibility that you have had at Earthwaking to feed the people, because you apparently had already helped or gotten volunteers to take on your role. So that freed you up, but you were still caught in doing initially, because that's just your automatic sense. So yes, there's the difficulty in that, the surrender, and I think that's I'm personally having that issue as well, because I'm also like you, a doer. I got to do stuff, do, and oftentimes forget to pause and surrender and allow a new message or a new direction to come in and flow, because I'm always trying to push it out versus let it come in. So I think that's what you were kind of finding in your journey, was that by kind of forcing yourself into the silence, it allowed you finally to calm down and to receive from that surrender moment, or that state of surrender, that is, so that you were able to make it a useful exercise or an experience. But it took some time to calm down your doing mind and not worrying about what was going on back in the other place. But so that was a good revelation, for yourself, to
Let me,
see how you can indeed surrender.
yeah. I've been pretty high strung in my mental, my head, been all in my head about, oh yeah, we got to move to Costa Rica. We got to figure out how, oh my God, we got all this stuff, and we got this house, and we got the, Dave's trying to hold down a job, and and just really getting myself in a frenzy. And I I really feel, I just want to say I really feel um a lot. I just realized I needed to stop trying to wrestle the control of this process, um and let, because I'm getting ahead of Dave, or I was, and I think I've backed off, and I realized that I was not listening to God, to my intuition, to God. I wasn't taking the proper role of also being um, a submissive, if you will, partner to Dave, um, so that we could work together more in concert. And I was trying to wrestle that and say, come on. And so I feel the surrender, and I don't, I still hope that the end result is the same as the happy, connected, permaculture experience I wanted to unfold for us in somewhere in Costa Rica, maybe next to Jose or something. We have to kind of I need to surrender, and I feel better. I think it was today. I just kind of realized, Brenda, you're trying to take too much control. Just back up. So, I feel, I think the best I ever feel is when I allow devotions to happen, just, because I'm taking care of animals and just hanging around, taking care of whatever's in front of me, and seeing the awesomeness of it is and feeling the gratitude for what I do have, here in God's creation. So I feel that's when I feel the best. So maybe it's a sign.
For you personally, Brenda, how did you navigate when you had this, like, a lot of, because, like, the only thing we're ever letting go of and surrendering is control. So, like, when you had all this energy of, like, ooh, like, we need to go, we need to have things happen, like, how did you go from that to, like, surrendering and allowing?
Well, I'd say it was a process, because I was getting frustrated and not achieving what I thought I was trying to achieve, like, at all. So you're asking how it happened?
How you shifted?
How I shifted? I think well, I know God was involved, but I'm not sure I can really fully describe. I think it was just, I finally allowed myself to hear what I think God was trying to move me towards. Not in a literal sense, but just in a intuitive sense. Just I think, well, to be honest, I kind of got determined to hang on to my head more than my heart for a good. I was stubborn. I can be stubborn.
She was stubborn. Well, the backstory was that she had booked an airline ticket, Airbnb. She wanted to go to Uvita because they're having a Bitcoin conference this weekend. Or is it this weekend? No, next weekend. Bitcoin conference in Uvita, and it's Bitcoin jungle, they call it down there. So she was all excited about going down there. Plus, we had
that
met.
Might be right now. Yeah,
maybe it's right now. I thought it was 18th. Anyway, so and 2 weeks prior, we had met with remember Brandy and Jake from Toronto, Canada.
I do, yes.
They stayed at the Earth Waking for the Remember experience, and also they went and toured around. They went off to the Nicoya Peninsula, went to Nosara and some other places, fell in love with that whole area up there. Anyway, she came back. She's got this sense of urgency that she's got to leave Canada, the chemtrails and Trudeau and everybody's coming down on her. And so we met. They came to visit us. We spent a weekend together, had a great time. And that was the urgency that, we started communicating on a signal thread, and she was
I
making
sense
plans to
her
come back.
urgency, and
Yeah, and
I'm
then she
trying
jumped on
to
the emergency,
be.
but I wasn't feeling the urgency because I'm like, well, geez, it's wintertime. We're, we have this nice house here. We spent 10 years building this place up to be resilient. And, to walk away from that to me was sort of offensive, because like, what do we do this all for? We have solar panels, we have electrical that's all paid for by solar power. We have a food forest front yard that's now producing, not in the sense what you guys have, but we have apples, cherries, raspberries, blueberries, no bananas. But this place is producing finally. The dome that we built is producing food, and we have a summertime surplus. I canned a bunch of food. We raise rabbits. I canned the meat. So we have all this preps and this stuff here, and to abandon it all seems senseless. So I wasn't jumping on board, and she had a sense of that. And because I was just kind of like, go then, you go by yourself. And she realized, I don't really want to necessarily do this by myself, and maybe this is crazy, and took that pause, I believe. Maybe it was a
Well,
surrender.
it was almost like I'd be leaving you. Just
Well, yeah,
to
I was
that,
resigning,
because,
like if that's you feel like you must do. If
I
God's
mean,
calling
leaving you, and I no, I
But
was.
she
I
threatened a
was-
divorce. That's right.
Oh yeah, but
That's it. You can stay here with a dog. Well, she wanted the dog too.
no, the dog is your dog.
He's my dog. Okay.
Oh,
So anyway,
I
but-
would find a new dog.
well, the funny
in
thing, here's the
Costa
thing.
Rica.
Here's the thing, Neal. So yeah, she calmed down and just announced that I've canceled the airline ticket. I canceled all the Airbnbs. I'm like, to some degree, it was a sigh of relief. Like, we're not ready for this. And then all of a sudden, that real estate connection came through. We connected with this guy on YouTube, which was that property.
Yeah, Pepe Lopez. Is
Pepe
so,
Lopez
so
and
funny,
that property next to Ecomaste. And that forced me to reach out to Amanda, and then she connected me to Jose's WhatsApp number, and we had that call this morning. So that was that surrender that she did allowed this new door to open up via our connection with Amanda and Jose. And then he explained his opportunity with the 14 acres, and we're like, well, that's probably the better direction. Instead of chasing this other fantasy, why don't we let this thing flow and open up, as the serendipity that it should be. And that's where, here we are now. And you happen to be at that site in the 14 acres. So suddenly there's a direction that's just kind of emerging. And that's the new focus now is, okay, let's hone in on that and make a deliberate plan, not just go, we must leave now, but let's put this in a methodical sense, a plan, so that we can make it, a real deal. So that's the next step. In fact, now that let's go with this flow that's opened up, and see where that leads us, because we have the conversation with Jose today was really a resonating high vibration conversation, and we feel a pull there now that we might be able to lend a hand, especially because we've been doing this permaculture for 10 years. We have experience not in tropical, but in the mindset and the processes, so that perhaps there's a role there for us potentially. So that's kind of a new excitement. By letting go of one thing, something else actually better is emerging.
I can promise you there's a role here for you, and it's like you were speaking to, like you don't know that much about tropical, but if you're here for like literally 2 seasons, you'll be integrated to the point where you're gonna start adjusting things and navigating, because permaculture is adapting to the environment you're in. It doesn't matter where you're.
Yes.
So
we know about energy flows, the observe and interact, and catch and release, all that kind of stuff, and stacking functions. I mean, we do that here. So it would just be a matter of adapting, like you said, to a tropical environment. If anything, because you don't have the freeze that we do here, there's not the dormancy. Right now we feel it's a quiet time, because it's frozen out there. So we don't, we're checking on the dome, we're checking on the animals, but nothing going on, in the, it builds up to April. Well, then we start plants, we start seedlings. right now we have microgreens. We can grow microgreens.
Well, we're keeping
In
the
the basement.
breeding animals. We have two female and a male duck, and 3 female rabbits and a male, and we're just hanging on to them to let the population explode in the spring,
Yeah, seed stock for
if you will,
spring production.
So there's the joy and the, you know, the high vibration of just sharing my appreciation for the animals and trying to give them some joy in their lives. As far as, you know, it kind of sucks actually because it's frozen out there, but you know, let's give them the food scraps or whatever, the treats, and so it's a holding pattern that we have going on right now, waiting for the explosion of life that happens with spring, where I think it'd be fun to explore what we could do with different seasons, different dynamics. I mean, it sounds like it's probably more of a shift of there's probably still shifts of focus throughout the year, but I don't know, just different. I think.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you have a ripening of certain fruits at a certain time of year. You definitely have cycles.
I feel like there's more opportunity also to feed the animals from the land year round.
There is, for sure. That's a fact. Yeah, that's just truth.
Too, Neal, is that, you know, part of this surrender too is being open to what our true vision, you know, to instill the vision. But a lot of it has to manage the education. But also, what we're trying to do is set this up so that we can make it through this collapse that's coming. So we want to live like we're already on the other side, and also be leaders for people to learn this new way, which is an integrated way with nature, with food, with each other. You know, a spirit-filled community, so that when people are seeking, then that old system doesn't work anymore. What's the way we should live? Hey, we got it over here, people, and then we can actually become incubators for this new mindset and activity, and also really to create a legacy, because, you know, we do have an end to this body, this flesh suit here, but we want it to carry on beyond ourselves. So as we get older, we want to have a legacy for the next generation, and that's what's exciting to me, is being able to do this.
Did we lose you?
Uh-oh.
Neal's picture disappeared. Can you hear us?
He fell off. Host me. Oh, we're done. I guess we have to let's see if we have an invite. Send email, invite contacts. We lost our connection, folks. So we're gonna have to step out and step back in, hopefully. Oh,
Hey,
There.
something disconnected.
yeah, I noticed.
So, you know, to create a legacy, you know, that carries on beyond us, you know, so that our energy is moving to the next generation. And I'm hopeful, though. I don't know idea what that area is like with children, or, you know, with the education opportunity, but I'm imagining there's some desire in the Tienamostas, Plantanillo area there for this kind of new way of living.
There is very much so. There's many people. Actually, this came up after the silent ceremony, where August Rose, Bradley's daughter, who's now in a relationship with Tim from Diamante Luz.
Oh yeah, Tim.
She's called, yeah, Tim Breyer. she spoke to, like, this is her vision, and she was asking for prayers to manifest some kind of a schooling system in the Diamante Valley that is like conscious schooling, and it's not this indoctrination. It's literally a forest school where
Yes.
people are, like, the children are learning about what it is to actually live in harmony, first of all with God, and then second of all with each other, and then third of all in nature.
Well, the other thing too is to use nature as the curriculum. We read this the book The Ringing Cedars of Russia with Anastasia, and she talks about how children should be educated, basically in the wild, so they can make their own tools, make their own toys. When you give them a manufactured toy that's artificial, they don't see that as even real. Whereas if they can work with their own toys, let them play in the jungle, let them create fun, swinging and whatever, building. When I was young, I grew up in a time where it was pretty free, and we would just go. There was vacant land nearby. We would build forts. We would find swimming holes. This is all just free range children back in that time, which doesn't exist anymore. But we were allowed.
Well, that was just after school. But
Yeah.
what was school like?
Well, we
That
went to
was
school,
still
yeah.
Indoctrination.
But still, we would.
Maybe to a lesser extent, but it was.
I remember
it
there was a stream coming down. We used to build dams. We would with a shovel and earth. It was kind of sandy, so we would block the flow of the water and build reservoirs to the point where they flow and break the breach the dam. But that was the cool part. We'd build it and hold it up, watch it fill up, and then the massive water would finally breach over the top, and then down it goes. So there's little stupid stuff like that, though. But here we are, dam building as kids, in this vacant land.
That sounds good.
So stuff like that, and so anyway, the point being is that nature is education in of itself. If you let kids just kind of self play, somewhat what do they call it? Not unschooling, yeah. So kind of a loose curriculum of guidance, but let the flow of the children, work within that curriculum with not a lot of rules and regulations. They make their own, and they find their own boundaries and that kind of thing. And they find, what hurts and what doesn't. That thing stung. Well, don't touch that then.
It brings to mind. I just want to mention something I think is cool. We take a woods walk near here, and in the woods there's we got very sandy soil, and some young men over the last few years have really taken a lot of effort to create these jumps for their mountain bikes. So they have these. They're like what, 5 feet tall?
4 feet tall jumps.
Sculpted sand jumps for their mountain bikes. So they got themselves launching through there.
There's a whole course in the woods.
What an awesome way to learn physics, like the G forces, acceleration, deceleration, and the joy of feeling and combined with, of course, the spirit of what is, of God, and but you just see these young men, they're I just love, that's the kind of thing that makes me
what's an example? They're teenage boys, and there's this ridge, and they obviously they've see the gravity opportunity, and they just got inspired with a shovel and a wheelbarrow and started building jumps. And these are some full-on real deal acrobatic jumps. I mean, big kickers on them and everything. So they're badass jumps. We're like, whoa. And once in a while we'll see them there, and they're like, "You want to see me jump? Absolutely!" Up they go, down. It's just so yeah. That's just an example of what can happen in a natural environment where there's a hill, there's slope, and they envision they got bicycle, they envision catching air. Let's build a jump. So it's that free form sort of play that can exist in that environment. And then you add in the food forest elements. Now you've got, the children learn about growing these plants, how they become to maturity, harvesting them. What do you do with the harvested, food, preservation, all that kind of stuff. They become self-sufficient at an early age because they're seeing how it works, and that this is real food, not the stuff in the grocery store, but the stuff coming off the tree. And they'll become vibrant, spiritual beings as a result, because they're being fulfilled with the land
with
directly.
with vitamins and minerals.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Um,
As I said, real food that actually will provide real nutrition, and it doesn't
exactly.
require really a lot of processing in most cases. Some might be to be cooked. That
The
kind of.
natural cause and effect is the opportunities are just so huge.
Then you bring in animal elements too, and then you've got that whole other dynamic of other species. You learn respect for life. Even if you harvest the animals, you explain that whole role too. That it's part of the life cycle, and that to keep us going, there is a sacrifice, but it's reverence for that as well. So these are all the things that we can envision for an educational center. But like I said before, also immersive with generations. The wise have so much heart into the
And
young. So
I get this. And another aspect to this education that Jose is really focusing on is this natural building. So like using bamboo, using cob, and then he built the home that he's living in right now. And you walk into that home, and there's a feeling to it. It's not just a home that you just walk into. There's a feeling in this home, and I was speaking to him. I don't know. It was like a week ago. I was sitting on the porch that he has and communicating to him, and I just had this download of like, wow, like when we build something, or when we like make something, there's the thing that we make, but then there's a part of our spirit that's like a part of Jose's in the beams of that bamboo in that home.
absolutely, for sure.
And when you go in there, you can feel it. And so
There's
I just see this being another education option is this
absolutely.
building.
I mean, one thing we saw at Earthwaking, which was kind of appalling to me, was the amount of sheet steel that you guys use.
Yeah.
For the tiny home, sheet steel and concrete and steel railings, and that's all great and everything. It's
Got the
definitely
job done, but
durable and it handles the rains and everything. But there's something to be said about utilizing the indigenous materials, around you to build your structures. I mean, humans go back many, many, centuries. That's what we did, was we used local materials. And you can, two things: you can build locally and you can eat locally almost 100%. You don't need all this imported stuff. And the beautiful thing about Costa Rica, a lot of it's open air. You don't need glass. You don't need windows. You can just let the breezes flow in and be comfortable in. As long as you have a roof, you definitely need a roof over there.
Yeah.
But
Where I was sleeping at Ecomaste, this was a cabin that Jose just constructed really recently, and it's totally built out of bamboo, and then the roof is a plastic sheet that's like stretched out way over the sides for side rain, and then the sides of that's connecting all the bamboo, and it's shaped like a one-room cabin. Then it's got an extension porch, but that is all just like screen.
yeah,
There's windows cut out, but even the windows are screened. And then there's shade cloth on the top, and then there's limestone on the ground. So the floor of this home was limestone.
it's dirt. Yeah,
And it like sleeping in that was just so awesome. Like literally, I don't know, 150 to 200 feet away, I could hear this creek flowing, and just hearing the cicadas and all the nature. You're in it. Like when you're at Ecomaste, you're
it's immersive.
immersed.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that in that kind of environment, you have an opportunity to be fully grounded, because you mentioned the flooring, limestone. If you're walking around barefoot, you're completely in contact with the earth. You're getting this grounding. That's a healing thing in and of itself. You're discharging all your static out of your body, and you're able to receive the energy of the earth directly into your body. I mean, animals do this all the time. We wear shoes, but you have that opportunity with the materials that are natural, with the flooring that's natural. You are, again, immersion is something that, and then with the immersion also comes the surrender. You're surrendering to the energy that is the place, and then you're able to receive the all the unknowing that comes to you to be known. So you don't even know what you might know until you're connecting and surrendering in that environment. And that's where natural building really, I think, is a valuable thing, because it's from the place you are, and it is your hand, your energy went into it, so that when it's completed, that energy is resident in that place, and also the energy of the earth where it sits. You're not disconnected. You're not like an alien in this place. You are part of it. And that's what I
Yeah.
think is the great opportunity in a place like, Ecomaste, and that ability with the education is to show that this dwelling connected to the nature of that place, the materials, the structure, and the people are all of the place, and the energetic field that develops as a result is very welcoming and expanding to those that come to visit.
It is not welcoming and expanding to the ego and to the person who loves to control things. But it is very welcoming and expanding and inviting to a heart-oriented person, to a person who surrenders often, and to a person who's in alignment with their highest well-being, as well as like the collective well-being. For those kind of people, it's very inviting and very expanding. And it's reason that you spoke to about this immersion and this surrendering to hearing what we don't even know that we haven't heard. With this grounding, with your feet being on the ground, you actually need that here. And I say that because like I've experienced myself get very ungrounded in this environment. Literally because of these cicadas emit such a high frequency
Oh yeah.
that they these higher centers in the body. And if you're not implementing some kind of a grounding practice, or you're just constantly distracting yourself from that noise, with conversation, with other noise, with like loud music, with just doing things. There's this when you're in this nature environment, and I even feel it at earthwaking. I'm like, I notice I'm really sensitive to noise right now, and I was just like hearing this. I'm hearing them right now, sitting in my room. Um, and but these cicadas, just being here, hearing these crickets, these cicadas, these toucans, um, they're healing and they're meditative, and you don't need to do anything other than be in this environment and surrender and allow, and you literally spiritually evolve just by being here.
Do you know?
I've seen it with so many people.
Are you aware of a certain note that the cicadas tune to? Do they have a certain?
I don't know what they're emitting, but I am very conscious too that that it is a measurable frequency, but I haven't measured it and I don't know what that is.
Well, I've heard that the like honeybees, when they vibrate, they hum in the note of C, and the C
Oh,
to the human is in alignment with the heartbeat, the note of C, which
wow.
is a foundational note in music. So that's the honeybees. Zzz, it hums at C. And actually, there's a guy. His name is Leo Sharaskin. He's horizontalhive.com, a Russian guy. He was saying he actually created a bed where he sleeps above the beehive, and he says it's a very calming sleep because of the note of C resonating underneath him and in his auditory reception. So maybe the cicadas are emitting a chorus, if you will, of a certain tone that is calming, maybe, and healing, because music is healing. Sound is one of the most one of the biggest unknowns that we have in the world of physics, and yet we're finding it to be the most powerful.
Yeah.
The sound frequency,
It can be super detrimental based on what frequency you're listening to, and it can be
Absolutely.
super positively transformational, depending on what frequency you're
We
listening
can
to.
go, in from death metal to Mozart symphonies. Big difference in energy, which is
Exactly.
and that's a good lesson. Is to put yourself into positive energy tones and music as much as possible, because that's going to raise your vibration. That's why the
Yes.
5.8 hertz is called the love frequency, because it elevates your vibration into the heart, and it's a warming and pleasant sound. 528 hertz.
So another thing with this surrender is I think it's an access to higher consciousness, and I think actually it's the only access. Um, and because I think that in our lower centers, they're all about control. So we're just about, when we're in fight or flight, freeze or appease, we're controlling everything. But we gotta surrender that control to then maybe access our emotions, to where we're like, oh, we've now surrendered all this like not feeling. So now maybe we're accessing our emotions, and so I see it as a continual surrender to access higher degrees of consciousness. And there's another aspect to where surrender is also an access point to healing, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And I had a belief with an injury that I had in my lower back like 3 years ago, that maybe it just was like that, and maybe it wouldn't change. But what I did was I surrendered that belief, and I have experienced healing in my back to where I can confidently speak right now that it's 100% healed. But it was through surrendering that it couldn't be done. It opened up to seeing the possibility of like anything is possible. Like this is just a simple back thing. Like maybe it's meant to be this way, but I now am open and surrendered to the possibility of healing happening, and so it did.
Okay, so you surrendered you gave up the belief that it was just going to be a back pain, a painful back, and you accepted the
I accepted that healing was actually a possibility, because before that I was like, I don't know, maybe this is just now like how this body operates. But then I gave that up and I surrendered it, and I took on that, like, it doesn't matter how much my physical body's injured, healing is possible. And when I did this, I experienced healing, and it wasn't just this, but it was this in combination with yoga and silence and guided meditation. But the surrendering the old belief and the seeing something as a possibility actually is, I think, was the biggest piece.
Right. So you let go of limitation and acceptance of defeat, even, and you let God in the surrender. Now you opened yourself up to other possibilities, alternative paths, or in what you're saying with the surrender, you're just saying, I accept it as healed. I accept healing, and I accept it as real, and it's coming to me. And then it did. But it is that let God, let go and let God. So the most key part of that is, well, there's two of them: let go and really let go. Because we can say that we let go, but we sometimes hang on. It's like that full release, and then having the faith and the trust. That's something that's spoken oftentimes in earthwaking. Is faith is the currency of heaven. Well, let the faith do, and we all battle with that because we don't trust. So you got to go with faith blindly, with full trust, and then your healing occurred as a result. So that's very powerful.
Yeah, it is, and
I think there's also
I literally think it's a recipe.
Well, yeah, I think you you nailed it there.
I think it's that there's a element of God, the Spirit of God guiding you towards activities that might help you to release that pain. I feel that is probably part of it. In other words,
it definitely is.
intuition, the guide you. Maybe I'll go do yoga. Maybe that'll, that little notion, that little push to go, where you just get an idea. But that's God. You're surrendering to God to try a thing, to try a thing, to let that process carry on, I guess.
Well, that's the let go. That's the let God part. And that's
I totally see this.
I should do yoga, or I should, do a walk in the woods, and there's activity in the letting God. He's going to direct you
I'll be right back.
with certain activities, but they're not of you; they're of Him and His direction. But you let go first. Now you're receptive to new suggestions, new paths, and new ideas that are healing paths. And like I said before, what you don't know will come to you as a new knowing. Oh, and that brings the healing because you did something different before there was blockage, and then you let go of it. You let the surrender occur, and now you're open to the receiving of the let God.
Yeah. Yeah, I see this so clearly of how you're speaking to it. Like I experience what you're speaking to.
Well, that's what you now are a witness to it and a testimony thereof.
Yeah.
So, and that's all. And you look at Jonathan, what he does. He's simply a witness and a testimony to his own experience of letting go and letting God. So and he talks about the 5 levels of consciousness, and that you were referring to earlier, is bringing that consciousness level up into the heart chakra, and letting the heart chakra then provide the answers for you. Because at the base level, the root chakra, the lower chakras, they are fight and flight. They're survival, and they're needed. But when you want to get to higher levels, you got to let that go and reach that higher level of consciousness where the heart is centered, and that's what you're talking about with the reception of new ideas and tools that come from God for healing.
Yeah, and it's accessible through that surrender.
Correct. The surrender, like you said, is the key. That's probably that's the secret sauce right there.
But then so this is where natural balance comes in, where all right, so there's even balance to surrender. So all right, are you just gonna surrender everything all the time, 100% of the time, and then what?
Right.
I'm actually genuinely asking a question.
Oh,
Well, I wonder that for myself. I mean, sometimes I do kind of disengage, I guess, and just say I'm not gonna deal with that. I'm not thinking of anything specific, but I can be. I think that's a big issue with me is, am I being too passive? Am I just disengaging because it feels like too much, I mean, sometimes we allow things in our lives that are not proper or you shouldn't be tolerated. At what point do we, say, love confronts dysfunction is that phrase that Jonathan would say, I think. At what point do we draw a line or make a stand? So I don't know where I'm going with this, except that I feel it in myself that I'm always trying to kind of figure out that piece. How do I participate without trying to be just whatever, bossy or whatever. I don't know.
Right. Like what I'm hearing is that like, all right, so there's this listening to the ego, which is like, I'm just gonna control everything in my life to have all the Neal's immediate needs met. Well, and then that happens, and then it's like, then what? Which is when I think the bubble pops for most people, and that bubble's about to pop on a global scale, where people have got everything for themselves, but now, boom, the bubble pops, and now what? Well, now contribute. And I think once you have everything for your personal being, I actually think we need to go there and actually accomplish that, and then surrender that aspect of needing to control, and then that's when now that my immediate needs are met, I can actually contribute and I can be a resource, and which is where I think the balance comes in. And I think there's this element of having a commitment to where you surrender.
You froze.
Oh, your connection froze. Yeah, you got internet problems. Oh boy.
Okay.
I think
We don't. We see you, but you're not moving or speaking. You froze.
we're off. Yeah, we got a bad connection again. He's still recording.
I wasn't sure if he was going into
It's off.
the globalists